What's up, guys? It's me again, and I'm just gonna touch a little bit on this Twitter feed that was released yesterday. And there's people that are going apeshit about it, and I don't blame them. I said a lot of positive stuff about the game, the upcoming game, in my last video, but that was all based on really 5 or 6 minutes of gameplay footage, and it's really not enough to make a really solid prediction. I didn't really make a prediction, but I said that for what it was, I saw some positives, and I was looking forward to it, and I was actually quite excited about the game. But after watching this Twitter feed, which was almost an hour long, everything that I felt positive about the game is just down the toilet, and I couldn't believe what I was watching, and it just took me back to Eutechnics, and these all these big promises, and they tell you, they market this stuff and tell you how great it's gonna be, and then you see it and it's a steaming pile of shit. So far, this is what I noticed. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the graphics. The graphics, they're awful, and I know I said in my last video that they weren't bad, but that was based on very little footage. And when you stare at something for almost an hour, you start noticing all the flaws. And I'm not being nitpicky here. This game is not. The graphics are not next gen. Okay, they're not even last gen. They barely be acceptable for last gen. And actually, Eutechnics did a better job visually. From what I see so far, just graphically, Eutechnics did a better job, which is actually one of the only things I ever said that was positive about Eutechnics, was they were able to create a visually appealing game. I wouldn't say that it was top notch, but it was more than adequate. So, in all fairness, that's something they did okay. That's where it ends, but it is what it is. This game doesn't look good. I did talk about in my last video about the cars, the way they looked. They're very ashy. They are. It's it. I don't know what it is. It's like they put this artificial filter over the game, especially over the cars, and it's just these cars are coated in dust and this mildewy, opaque. It just kills all the color. There's no contrast. It's weird. Like I said, it looks like there's some filter they have on the game, and I can't believe these developers actually spend day after day working on this game, and they see this, and they don't say, there's something wrong here. This doesn't look right. And that's the type of thing that raises flags for me about developers. This is why I'm hard on these guys, because they keep giving us substandard stuff and then selling us on the next product like how great it's going to be. And it never turns out to be that way. We did that with Eutechnics 4 times, 5, whatever. And every time people would say, oh, it's just their first game. It's just their second game. And the next one will be better. And it never happened. And that's not the way most of these developers work. The top developers in the industry, they do take pride in what they do, and they deliver. And if they usually try to top what they did. NASCAR, for some reason, has been neglected by the gaming community, by I should say the game developers. We don't have any alternative. So whatever DMR gives us in September, you're stuck with. You don't have to buy it, but if you're like me, you're a hardcore NASCAR fan and you don't have any games to play, because I sold my PS3. I want something from my PS4. I have a wheel and pedal setup that I spent $400 on, and I'm dying for a good NASCAR game. This is all we're getting. So I have to hope it's good, but I don't like what I see. In my last video, I was, for the most part, very positive about things, but that was based on 6 minutes. This was a much longer view. So the graphics really stand out as being substandard, which is that's the best way I could put it, being nice. There's only a couple of views that I saw from the car, and the cockpit view, which is the one I always use. The it looks it doesn't even look like last gen. It's really I don't know who they have designing these cars. So graphics, I I I don't know if they going to remove this stupid filter that they're using on these cars. I can't stare at that for long periods of time. It looks awful. It takes over. Um, there's only 2.5 months left before they actually release the game. Now that's not a lot of time, especially in game development. There's only so much you can get done. This should be the stage where they're just polishing the game. But I see too many glaring weaknesses in this game that even in another 2 months, how much can they really get done? I'm just being realistic. So, off the graphics. Then you had this guy, DJ Knight. I don't know who he is. He seems like a nice guy. It looks like he's into games. That's what he does. But what I did see is I didn't really. I don't know if it's fair to say he don't look like a NASCAR fan to me. Just the way he played the game and talked about it, it wasn't like a guy who's really into NASCAR. Wasn't like a guy that's into racing games. He was just like, oh, cool. These guys, they offered me the opportunity to do this live, and I'm going to do it because I have an audience, and, this is what I do. So, this is not just another opportunity to play something hardly anyone else is getting to play. So everybody's going to tune in and watch me on Twitch. I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to disparage the guy or make him sound bad. He seems like a nice guy. This is what he does. But what I'm saying is, if you're DMR, why in the world wouldn't you get somebody that somebody who's a hardcore NASCAR fan, who's looking forward to this game from a simulator level, like one of the guys that want this, like, hey man, I'm looking forward to get into this, and you got this guy. I don't get it. This is a horrible misstep in the marketing department. And I don't know. This is the type of stuff I would expect from Technics. Quite frankly, it doesn't reflect well. So this is a huge. They stepped in shit already, and the game's not even out. This was terrible. Graphics, I said what I said. Then the damage that we heard is supposed to be better. I didn't see any. This guy, first of all, I don't want to attack this guy, but he's the worst driver I've ever seen in a video game. He hit the wall 1,000 times. He's swerving up and down the track at high, and the car never spun out, which is something I mentioned in my previous video that concerned me. Cars at 90 degrees and never spun out or never wrecked. The AI would always catch the car, and this guy, who's the worst driver I've ever seen, he never spun out. He smashed into the wall 1,000,000 times. He couldn't keep the car straight. In all fairness, he mentioned that the sensitivity on the controller was a bit, over the top. He did dial it down, and his swerving was a little less after that, but he was still all over the place. At Daytona, he was still making passes, even though he was all over the track. Which brings me up to another point. This whole adjusting AI that is supposed to adjust to your skill level. I mentioned this not in the last video, but in my initial videos about the game when it was announced, when the release date was announced, that this adjusting AI, to me, it sounds like rubber banding, which some of you who've played the much older NASCAR games from the past remember that EA once had this rubber banding effect, where if you were behind or really far behind the leader, everyone in front of you would kind of slow down and let you make passes. Once you got to the front, your car kind of slowed down a little bit, and it kept the guys behind you on your heels. While that did at times provide some excitement where you're not just running away from everyone. It felt artificial. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather just work on making different levels of difficulty for the AI. But if you have a fast car and you're really good at a track and you're making passes and you get to the front, then you should keep extending that lead. That's what happens in the real world, and I rather lean towards realism. These guys have mentioned stuff about, for the casual fan, and this is the thing that always to me ruins these games, because these developers are so focused on being inclusive to everyone, which in theory it sounds great. I'm all for that. I'd like to see casual fans come and be able to enjoy the game, but not if it harms the game. The vast majority of the gaming community that's going to buy this game are hardcore NASCAR fans. These people don't want a easy walk through the park. You want it to be as realistic as possible. That's what bothers me about this. This guy's the worst driver I've ever seen. And at Daytona, he was literally averaging between 140 miles an hour to 160. Those of you who know about NASCAR and restricted plate racing know that is like that's snail's pace, basically, at this track. The field, literally, they were driving so slow. I thought he was under caution. He's swerving all over the place, but the whole field, everyone's going like 130. He's still making passes. The worst driver I've ever seen. Constantly smashing into the wall. And by the way, those of you who want to continue to say, oh, the setting was low, he put it on simulator. So the damage, I didn't see it. Supposedly under simulator, if anything, that car should not have been able to finish. And he's still making passes. That's how slow the field got. He was driving at about 150 average, and he was still passing cars on a restricted plate track. You tell me how that's realistic. You tell me how that's exciting. You're placating to bad drivers, casual fans. They're not going to make the bulk of your audience. And that's the mistake that I keep saying these guys make. They want to make a game for everyone. NASCAR is not something for everyone. If you either get it or you don't. Okay? The typical casual gamer who's really not a NASCAR guy, you hear the same thing all the time. Oh, just turn left again, because that's the mentality. If you either get it or you don't. Hardcore NASCAR fans understand the nuances, the little details about the race, this type of racing, and why it's so exciting. So, trying to placate or cater to that casual audience, what are you doing? You're hurting your hardcore base, the guys that are going to come out and support your product, in favor of people who they might want to pick it up. It doesn't make sense to me. And this is what you get. This is what I've said in the past. Why I don't like this. Whenever I hear these developers talking about, oh, we want it so that both casual and hardcore simulator fans can both enjoy it. You can't even create a product that satisfies one, but you want to satisfy everyone? Then, let's see. The difficult. Okay, I mentioned the difficulty. The rubber banding. It doesn't work to me. This is horrible. If you think that going 150 miles an hour at Daytona and still being able to make passes because everyone slows down, you think that's realistic NASCAR excitement? I don't know what to tell you. To me, that's horrendous. Then, let's see, the sound. This is something I didn't mention in the last video, but the sound was awful. I don't know if there was a bug or a glitch, but when this guy was going about 150 Daytona, it was almost no sound. Where do these people get the engine sounds, the sounds of these cars? After all these years, you would think that audio would be one of the easiest things to get right. Don't they have microphones and recorders? And yet, these games all come out with super artificial sounding cars, engines, exhaust. That stuff irks me. I just don't get it. It's like I don't want to attack these guys on a personal level because they do sound like they're NASCAR fans and they want to provide a good product. But you know what? You can only credit people for trying so much. At some point, you're selling me a product at a full price. These guys didn't come out and say, "Oh, there's no paint booth. It's the first game. It's only going to be $40. It's a teaser to what you're going to get later." That's fair. But no, they're overhyping this game. They're telling you how awesome and realistic the racing's gonna be, and then you see this. Don't take my word for it. Go watch this Twitter feed, okay? And if you can walk away from that and still say this looks like an awesome game, then you're just delusional. I was as nice as I could be in the last video, but I was being cautiously optimistic, and it was all based off of uh, six minutes of video. And the other thing I noticed under just race mode, there's tracks that are locked. Are you fucking kidding me? Locked tracks? So you have to reach a certain level before you can even race at these tracks? I hope that's not part of the career mode. That's bullshit. Okay? And it's not. How is that realistic? You keep saying how these games are, they're going to immerse you in the world of NASCAR. When they're anything but NASCAR. It's a bunch of bullshit. You're locking tracks right off the bat. I hope that's not part of the career mode. DMR, you have a lot of explaining to do. You need to address the graphics. At the very least, clean those cars up. They look horrendous. Okay? You need to address this AI. From what I see, it's like a poorly constructed rubber band effect that we used to see before. You have to come out and really do some damage control, because that Twitter feed, it destroyed all the enthusiasm I had for this game. And I'm telling you, I know some people think I'm being too hard on these guys, but you're the same people who are always saying, "Oh, it's just their first game. Oh, it's just their first game." Come on. I mean, are you going to seriously keep using that as an excuse? We have to put an end to this. What do you guys think about that Twitter feed? And I look forward to seeing your comments, because I am disappointed. And I tried to be as fair as I could with these guys, but I don't see improvement coming. There's only 2.5 months left before the release. Be realistic. How much you think they're gonna fix this mess up in 2.5 months? I look forward to your comments. Let me see what you have to say. So, thanks.